The palace gates swung open before Amara like the entrance to a dream. Golden spires stretched toward the heavens, their surfaces catching the afternoon sun and scattering light like 1,000 stars. As Prince Kwame helped her down from his horse, Amara's bare feet touched marble for the first time in her life. "Welcome home," Kwame said softly, his hand warm and steady in hers. But Amara couldn't speak. Her eyes were too busy trying to take in everything at once. The towering columns carved with the history of the kingdom, the gardens bursting with flowers she'd never seen before, the servants in their crisp uniforms moving like a well-choreographed dance. "My prince," a stern voice cut through her wonder. "What is the meaning of this?" An elderly woman emerged from the palace entrance, her bearing regal despite her age. She wore robes of deep purple, the color of royalty, and a golden crown sat atop her elaborate gray braids. This could only be the Queen Mother, Kwame's grandmother, and the kingdom's most powerful voice after the king himself. Kwame straightened, though he didn't release Amara's hand. "Grandmother, I would like to present—" "I know who she is," the Queen Mother interrupted, her sharp eyes examining Amara from head to toe. "Bakery delivered your message. The entire palace is in an uproar. Your father wishes to see you immediately. Then he shall see both of us," Kwame said firmly. The Queen Mother's eyebrows rose. "Boy, do you understand what you're doing? The kingdom expects you to marry someone of royal blood. Someone who can. Someone who can what, grandmother? Wear fine clothes? Recite poetry? Play the kora?" Kwame's voice was respectful but unwavering. "Or someone who can teach our people about true strength, real dignity, and the kind of love that transforms kingdoms." For a long moment, the Queen Mother said nothing. Then, surprisingly, a small smile tugged at her lips. "You sound like your grandfather. He was just as stubborn when he chose me." She turned to Amara. "Child, what is your name?" Amara, your majesty," Amara managed, executing the deepest bow she'd ever made. "Look at me, child." Amara raised her head, meeting the Queen Mother's penetrating gaze. Those ancient eyes seemed to see straight through to her soul, weighing, measuring, judging. "Do you love my grandson?" The question was so direct, so unexpected, that Amara answered from her heart before her mind could caution her. "Yes, your majesty. More than I knew it was possible to love someone. And you understand that being a princess, perhaps one day a queen, is not a fairy tale? That it means sacrifice, duty, and facing people who will hate you simply for existing." Amara thought of Mama Kesso, of Fatu and Bintu, of all the years of cruelty she'd endured. "I understand hardship, your majesty, and I understand that some burdens are worth carrying." The Queen Mother studied her for another long moment, then nodded. "Come with me, both of you. The king is waiting, and he's not in a pleasant mood." The throne room was enormous, its ceiling so high that Amara had to crane her neck to see the painted murals depicting the kingdom's ancient heroes. Courtiers lined the walls, their whispers creating a sound like wind through dry grass. But all whispers ceased when they saw Amara, still in her faded work dress, walking beside Prince Kwame. At the far end of the room, King Olabode sat on his throne, a massive carved chair that seemed to be made of pure gold. He was an imposing man, tall and broad-shouldered, with a beard streaked with gray and eyes that burned with barely controlled anger. "Kwame," the king's voice boomed across the throne room. "You dare bring this peasant girl into my palace and declare her your chosen bride." Kwame and Amara knelt before the throne, but when Kwame spoke, his voice was strong. "Father, I bring before you the woman I love, the woman whose character and spirit make her worthy of being our future queen." "Worthy?" King Olabode rose from his throne, descending the steps with measured, threatening grace. "Do you know who her family is? Do you know anything about her lineage, her education, her training?" "I know everything that matters," Kwame replied. "And what, pray tell, is that?" "I know she carries water calabashes heavier than most men could lift every single day without complaint. I know she shows kindness to forest creatures and sings with a voice that could move the ancestors themselves to tears. I know she has endured cruelty and hardship that would break most people, yet her spirit remains gentle and her heart remains pure. I know that in a single morning, she made me understand what love truly means. The king turned his burning gaze to Amara. And you, girl, what do you have to say for yourself? Amara's voice trembled, but she forced herself to speak. Your Majesty, I never asked for this honor. I never dreamed that someone like me could be chosen by someone like your son. But I love him with all my heart, and I swear to you on my mother's memory that I will spend every day of my life trying to be worthy of the trust he has placed in me. Pretty words, the king said dismissively. But words are cheap. Action is what matters. Character is what endures. He began to pace, his royal robes swishing against the polished floor. Very well. If my son insists on this madness, then we shall test it. Girl, I will give you 7 days. 7 days to prove that you possess the qualities necessary to be a princess of this kingdom. Father, Kwame started, but the king raised his hand. Be silent, boy. You have made your choice. Now let us see if your choice can survive reality. He turned back to Amara. You will face 3 trials. Fail any one of them, and you return to your village. Do you accept these terms? Amara's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. 7 days, 3 trials. Everything she had ever dreamed of hung in the balance. I accept, Your Majesty, she said clearly. Then it is decided. The king returned to his throne. The first trial begins tomorrow at dawn. Be ready. As they were dismissed from the throne room, Kwame squeezed Amara's hand. Don't worry, he whispered. Whatever these trials are, we'll face them together. But the Queen Mother, who had been silent throughout the audience, now spoke in a voice only they could hear. Actually, grandson, that's not how this works. She must face the trials alone. That is the law of our kingdom. A future queen must prove her own strength, not rely on her prince to save her. Amara saw the despair flash across Kwame's face, but she found herself smiling. It's all right, she told him. I've been facing trials alone my entire life. At least these ones have a purpose beyond Mama Kesso's cruelty. Dawn came too quickly. Amara had spent the night in a palace room more luxurious than any space she'd ever inhabited. A real bed with soft mattresses, walls hung with beautiful tapestries, a window that looked out over gardens that seemed to stretch forever. Servants had brought her food, more food in one meal than she usually ate in a week. They had drawn her a bath and provided her with a simple but clean dress of blue cotton. Yet she had barely slept. How could she, knowing that her future and her love for Kwame depended on the next 7 days? A knock at her door brought a young servant girl with a shy smile. Miss Amara, the Queen Mother requests your presence in the Hall of Wisdom. Amara followed the girl through corridors that seemed to wind like a labyrinth. Finally, they emerged into a circular room lined with books, more books than Amara had known existed in the world. In the center of the room sat the Queen Mother, surrounded by 3 of the kingdom's most respected elders. Good morning, child, the Queen Mother said. Your first trial is one of wisdom. A queen must be able to make difficult decisions that affect not just herself, but her entire kingdom. So we have prepared a test. One of the elders, an ancient man with kind eyes, leaned forward. We will present you with 3 scenarios. Each involves a conflict in the kingdom. You must tell us how you would resolve it, and explain your reasoning. Amara's mouth went dry. She had never been educated. She couldn't read or write beyond the few words her mother had taught her before she died. How could she possibly compete with those who had studied wisdom their entire lives? But then she remembered Kwame's words by the stream. I know you have a strength that most people never develop because they've never needed to. I'm ready, she said. The first elder cleared his throat. Scenario 1. 2 farmers come before the throne, both claiming ownership of the same plot of land. Each has witnesses who swear the land belongs to them. The witnesses on both sides are known to be honest people. How do you determine who truly owns the land? Amara closed her eyes, thinking. This reminded her of arguments she'd witnessed in her village. Your Majesty, she said slowly, I would ask to see the land itself. Earth remembers who has cared for it. I would look at which farmer's hands carry the soil of that specific field. I would ask the trees and plants what they have witnessed, who has watered them, who has harvested them, who has sung to them while working. The land knows its own master. The elders exchanged glances. The Queen Mother's expression remained neutral. Scenario 2, the second elder said. A wealthy merchant refuses to pay taxes, claiming that the kingdom takes too much from successful traders. Meanwhile, a poor widow cannot feed her children. The law says the merchant must pay, but he threatens to take his business to another kingdom if forced. What do you do? This one was harder. Amara thought about Mama Kesso, who always seemed to have enough for her own daughters, but nothing for the stepdaughter who did all the work. The merchant values his wealth above his duty to his people, Amara said carefully. But a wise queen doesn't force or threaten. She teaches. I would invite this merchant to spend one day living as that widow lives. Let him feel hunger. Let him see his children's tears. Let him understand that a kingdom is only as strong as its weakest member. Then ask him again if his taxes are too high, and if he still refuses and leaves. She paused. Then we celebrate, because a kingdom is better off without those who lack compassion. A small smile appeared on the Queen Mother's face. The third elder, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, presented the final scenario. A princess from a neighboring kingdom arrives seeking asylum. She has run away from forced marriage to a cruel king. But that king is powerful, and he demands we return her or face war. The easy choice is to send her back and preserve peace. What would you do? Amara felt tears prick her eyes. This wasn't just a hypothetical. It was her own story, barely disguised. I would tell that king that our kingdom does not trade in human suffering, she said, her voice strengthening with each word. That we do not measure peace by how many people we sacrifice to maintain it. That a kingdom built on the backs of oppressed women is no kingdom at all, but a prison. And if he wants war to reclaim someone who ran from his cruelty, then we will show him that protecting the powerless is worth fighting for. The room fell silent. Then the Queen Mother stood, her eyes shining with something that might have been pride. Child, you have never studied in schools or read the great philosophers. But you have something rarer than education. You have wisdom born of suffering transformed into compassion. You have passed the first trial. Relief flooded through Amara so powerfully that her knees nearly buckled. One down, 2 to go. The second trial came 2 days later, giving Amara time to recover and prepare. This time, she was led to the palace training grounds where the kingdom's warriors practiced. Prince Kwame was there, and his face lit up when he saw her, but he remained silent, respecting the rule that he could not assist her. The master of warriors, a muscular woman named Captain Zara, stood in the center of the field. The second trial tests strength, she announced, but not the strength of muscles alone. A queen must have the strength to endure, to persist, to overcome. She gestured to 3 stations set up across the grounds. You will face 3 challenges. First, you will carry water, but not in calabashes. She pointed to a series of enormous clay jars, each easily twice the size of the vessels Amara usually carried. You must fill these jars from the well and carry them to the palace kitchen. All 6 of them. Amara looked at the massive jars and felt her heart sink. Even empty, they would be heavy. Filled with water, they would be nearly impossible for someone her size to lift. Second, Captain Zara continued. You will work in the field with our farmers from sunrise to sunset, doing the same labor they do. Third, you will care for our royal horses, all 20 of them, grooming, feeding, and cleaning their stables. And I must complete all of this in how long? Amara asked. 2 days, Captain Zara said. Starting now. For the next 48 hours, Amara pushed her body beyond limits she didn't know existed. The water jars were indeed nearly impossible. She had to make multiple trips, filling each jar only partially so she could actually lift it. Her back screamed with pain. Her shoulders felt like they might separate from her body. But she thought of every morning she'd walked to the stream, every heavy burden Mama Kesso had placed on her, and she kept going. In the fields, she planted alongside the farmers, her hands blistering and bleeding as she worked the hard earth. But she also sang her mother's songs, new songs, songs that made the work lighter for everyone. By sunset, the other workers were singing with her, and what had been a trial had become something closer to celebration. The horses were the greatest challenge. Amara had never worked with such magnificent animals before. One particularly spirited stallion, the king's own mount, seemed determined to make her life difficult. He stomped, he whinnied, he refused to let her near with the grooming brush. But Amara remembered how the forest animals had trusted her. She sat down in the straw of his stall and began to hum. Slowly, softly, she sang to him about green fields and freedom, about being valued and understood. And slowly, the great horse calmed. He stepped forward. He nuzzled her shoulder. By the time she finished grooming him, he was following her around like a devoted dog. When Captain Zara came to inspect Amara's work at the end of the second day, she found not just the tasks completed, but something more. The kitchen staff was smiling, talking about the singing girl who had worked with such grace. The farmers were requesting that Amara come back to help them again. And the king's notoriously difficult stallion was standing calmly while Amara scratched behind his ears. "You have passed the second trial," Captain Zara said, and there was respect in her voice. "You have shown that true strength isn't about force, but about endurance, persistence, and the ability to bring joy even to difficult labor. 2 down, 1 to go." But as Amara collapsed in her bed that night, every muscle in her body screaming with pain, she couldn't help but wonder what the third trial would demand of her. The final trial was announced on the 7th day. Amara was led to the throne room, where the entire court had gathered. King Olabode sat on his throne, his expression unreadable. Prince Kwame stood to one side, his hands clenched into fists, clearly struggling with his inability to help. But it was the Queen Mother who stepped forward to explain the final trial. "The most important quality in a queen," she said, her voice carrying across the hushed room, "is not wisdom or strength, though both are necessary. It is heart. A queen must be able to love not just her prince, but her people, all of her people, even those who don't deserve it." She gestured, and guards brought forward 3 figures. Amara's breath caught in her throat. Mama Kiso, Fatu, Bintu. Her stepmother and stepsisters stood before the throne, their eyes downcast with shame. They were dressed plainly, their usual arrogance completely deflated. "These 3 have been brought before the crown," the Queen Mother continued, "charged with cruelty and abuse toward you. The law allows you, as the wrong party, to determine their punishment. You may demand justice. They could be banished, imprisoned, or made to serve as you once served them." Mama Keso's eyes met Amara's, and for the first time, Amara saw something in them that might have been fear. Or, the Queen Mother said softly, "You may show mercy. The choice is yours, and by your choice, we will know whether you possess the heart necessary to rule." The throne room fell absolutely silent. Everyone was watching Amara, waiting to see what she would do. Amara looked at Mama Keso, and 1,000 memories flooded through her mind. The harsh words, the impossible tasks, the loneliness, the hunger, the years of being told she was worthless, that she would never amount to anything. But then she remembered something else. She remembered her mother's voice, singing, "Music is the language of the heart, and those who can speak it will never truly be alone." She remembered Kwame's words, "Don't let anyone convince you that you're not worthy of love, because you are." And she remembered sitting by the stream, finding peace even in hardship, maintaining her gentleness even when the world was cruel. "Your Majesty," Amara said, turning to address the king, "I do not want revenge. Revenge would make me just like them, someone who causes pain because pain was caused to me." She walked closer to her stepfamily. Up close, she could see that Mama Keso looked older, more tired. Fatu and Bintu seemed smaller somehow, as if their cruelty had diminished them. "Mama Keso," Amara said, and the use of that familial term made the older woman flinch. "You treated me terribly because you were afraid. Afraid that my father might love me more than he loved you or your daughters. afraid that you wouldn't have enough. So you took from the one person who had even less. Mama Kesso's eyes filled with tears. Fatu, Bintu, Amara continued. You were cruel because your mother taught you that some people matter more than others. That's what you learned in your home, so that's what you became. She took a deep breath. But I learned something different. I learned that cruelty only breeds more cruelty, and that the only way to break that cycle is through forgiveness. She turned back to the king. Your Majesty, I ask that you show mercy to my stepfamily. Let them return to their village. But I also ask that they be required to attend the kingdom's school for 1 year, learning to read and write and study the principles of kindness and justice. And when that year is over, if they choose, I would welcome them to visit me here at the palace. The throne room erupted in whispers. Mama Kesso fell to her knees, sobbing. Fatu and Binta stared at Amara with expressions mixing shame and disbelief. You would do this? The king asked, his voice softer than it had been. Even after everything they did to you? Yes, your Majesty, Amara said simply. Because I don't want to be defined by what was done to me. I want to be defined by what I choose to do in response. King Olabode stood from his throne and descended the steps. He walked to Amara and, to everyone's shock, bowed to her. Rise, he said to Mama Kesso and her daughters. You have been shown mercy you do not deserve. Use it wisely. Then he turned to address the entire court. I have tested this girl with trials of wisdom, strength, and heart. She has passed them all, not through perfection, but through something more precious, through genuine goodness of character. Kwame, my son, you have chosen well. Prince Kwame moved forward, tears streaming down his face. He took Amara's hands in his. Did you ever doubt? He whispered. Every moment, she admitted. But doubt doesn't mean failure. It just means we're doing something that matters. The Queen Mother stepped forward, carrying a small wooden box. Amara, she said, her voice thick with emotion, before you stands a final question. Will you accept the responsibility of becoming a princess of this kingdom, knowing that it will not be easy, that people will challenge you, that you will face difficulties beyond what you've already endured? Amara thought about the stream, about the forest path, about the quiet moments of peace she'd found even in hardship. She thought about the girl she'd been, carrying water, singing to animals, finding beauty in small things. Then she thought about the girl she could become, helping her people, teaching them about mercy, showing them that kindness wasn't weakness, but the truest form of strength. I accept, she said clearly. I accept all of it. The Queen Mother opened the box, revealing a silver circlet studded with small blue stones that sparkled like water in sunlight. This was my crown when I first became a princess, she said, and now it is yours. She placed the circlet on Amara's head, and the entire court erupted in cheers. But Amara barely heard them. All she could see was Kwame, smiling at her with such love and pride that it made her heart feel like it might burst. I told you we'd find a way, he whispered. You did, she agreed. You really did. 3 months later, the entire kingdom gathered for a celebration unlike any they'd ever seen. Amara walked through the palace gardens toward the ceremonial platform where Kwame waited, and this time she was dressed as a princess should be, in robes of finest cloth, adorned with jewels that caught the light like stars. But around her neck, she wore something simple, a cord strung with small stones from the stream where everything had changed. The ceremony was beautiful, blessed by priests and witnessed by thousands. But for Amara, the most meaningful moment came when it was over, when she and Kwame stood together before their people, and she saw faces in the crowd she recognized. There was Captain Zara, grinning with fierce pride. There were the farmers from the trial, waving enthusiastically. There was the kitchen staff, some wiping away happy tears. And there, in a place of honor near the front, sat Mama Kesso, Fatu, and Bintu. They were dressed simply but cleanly, their faces showing the changes that a year of learning and reflection had brought. When Amara caught Mama Kesso's eye, the older woman smiled, tentative, uncertain, but genuine, and mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." As Prince Wami and Princess Amara waved to their people, Kwame leaned close and whispered, "Do you miss it? The stream? The quiet mornings?" Amara smiled. "Sometimes. But I've learned something important." "What's that?" "That magic isn't found in one place or one moment. It's found in choosing love over hate, mercy over revenge, hope over despair. Every single day. And I can do that anywhere, even in a palace." "Even as a queen?" Kwame asked. "Especially as a queen," Amara replied. And as the celebration continued around them, as music filled the air and her people danced and sang, Princess Amara closed her eyes for just a moment and hummed her mother's lullaby. The same song she'd sung by the stream. The same melody that had changed her life. Because some songs are too beautiful to ever forget. And some stories of kindness triumphing over cruelty, of love conquering hatred, of girls who carry water becoming queens, are too important to ever let fade away.